The great arena of Threxia Prime stood like a giant stone circle carved into the heart of the desert planet. Its walls rose higher than the towers of most civilizations, and its floor was marked with scars from hundreds of battles fought over centuries. Dust filled the hot air, and the sun fell directly on the stone seats where thousands of Threxians waited to witness the coming duel. Their roars echoed across the battlefield, creating a sound like thunder rolling in a metal chamber. At the center of the arena stood Auric Vance, the first human knight commander ever allowed into the Galactic Coalition's military council. He was tall for a human, but compared to the Threxians, he looked small, almost fragile. His armor was thin and flexible, built for speed rather than brute force. At his side hung a short, simple combat blade. It was nothing like the massive plasma swords the Threxians used. The crowd noticed the difference at once, and laughter rolled through their seats like a wave. Auric ignored them. He took a slow breath, remembering what he had trained for. He stood straight, hands calm, eyes focused, waiting for the arrival of his opponent. From the far end of the arena, a massive gate opened. The ground shook as Rokara, captain of the Threxian warrior caste, marched forward with the confidence of a living legend. Her armor was heavy, shaped like overlapping scales of dark metal with glowing scars carved into it. In her hand, she carried a plasma sword taller than Auric himself. The blade hummed with blue energy, rumbling as if hungry for battle. The Threxian crowd stood and roared her name. Rokara raised her sword and soaked in their praise before turning her sharp yellow eyes toward Auric. A smile touched her face, not a friendly smile, but one of amusement. "So this is the first human brave enough to face me?" she said, her voice loud enough for the whole arena to hear. "I expected someone larger." More laughter echoed through the seats. Auric did not answer. He was used to Threxian strength, used to their size, used to being underestimated. Their bodies were smaller, their biology weaker, their technology simpler. But humans had something most races ignored: adaptability. Rokara's eyes dipped toward Auric's belt, where his small blade hung in its sheath. She tilted her head with a mocking grin. "I hope the bulge between your legs isn't the same size as your sword," she mocked. The crowd erupted with laughter, stomping the stone floors hard enough to shake dust from the highest arches. Threxians loved insults almost as much as they loved combat, and Rokara's sharp tongue was as famous as her battle skills. Auric remained silent. He did not take the insult personally. He had been warned before coming. Threxians will test your pride. Do not let it guide you. He stepped forward, meeting Rokara's eyes. "Are you finished?" he asked calmly. That simple question made the crowd fall silent. No one had expected such a cool response. No fear, no anger, no shame. Rokara grinned wider. "Brave," she said. "Brave and foolish. I like that." She pointed her massive blade at him. "When you fall, human, I will carry your little sword home as a souvenir." Auric nodded once. "If you can lift it," he said. This time, the crowd did not laugh. They only watched, surprised that the human dared to answer back. The arena bell rang, loud and deep, signaling the beginning of the duel. Rokara stomped forward, each step cracking the stone beneath her. Her heavy armor made her look like a walking mountain, every movement filled with raw, destructive power. Auric moved lightly, like someone walking across thin ice. His boots barely touched the ground. The contrast was clear to everyone watching. The announcer's voice echoed from above. "This is a duel of honor between Captain Rokara of the Threxian warrior caste and Commander Auric Vance of the Human Expeditionary Force. Weapons only, no shields. Combat until surrender or knockout. Begin." N. Rokara wasted no time. With a roar, she swung her plasma sword in a wide arc. The blade hummed through the air, leaving a bright trail of energy behind it. Auric rolled aside just in time. The sword slammed into the ground where he had stood, cracking the stone and sending dust flying in all directions. The audience cheered. Orc got to his feet quickly, but Rokara was already charging again. Her movements, though heavy, were shockingly fast. Threxians were known for their intense physical power. They could crush boulders in their hands and jump several times their height without effort. Orc knew he could not block her strikes. If he tried to match her strength, he would lose. So he did not even try. He dodged left, he ducked right, he stepped back, he twisted his body in ways that made his armor flex like cloth. The Threxian sword came close to him many times, close enough for him to feel the heat of the plasma, but it never touched him. Rokara grew irritated. "You run well, human," she growled. "But running is not fighting." Orc did not respond. He simply shifted his stance, watching her carefully. He could see small details, the way her breathing changed when she swung, the slight delay before she stepped forward, the tiny gap between her armor plates when she raised her sword. Humans excelled at noticing things. It was one of their survival traits. Rokara brought her sword down in a heavy vertical strike. Orc rolled between her legs, not the safest move, but the fastest route to her blind spot. He came up behind her and tapped the back of her armor with his blade. Not cutting, just touching. The audience gasped. It was a tiny mark. Barely anything, but it was proof he had gotten behind her without her noticing. Rokara spun around with a snarl. "Do not mock me." Orc shook his head. "I am not mocking you. I am showing you that size is not everything." She roared and charged again. This time her swings were wild, angry, less controlled. Orc avoided them with growing confidence. He jumped onto a broken stone pillar, then leapt off as Rokara smashed it apart with one powerful swing. A storm of dust filled the air, and Orc disappeared inside it. Rokara looked around, confused. "Where did you go, human?" Orc's voice came from behind her again. "Here." Before she could turn, he slashed a thin line across her shoulder armor. The hit was small, but it was the second time he had gotten behind her. The Threxian crowd shifted uncomfortably. Their champion was being outmaneuvered by a human. No one had expected this. Rokara's fury grew. She slammed her sword into the ground again, creating a shockwave that pushed dust away and forced Orc to retreat. Her armor glowed brighter as she activated a higher battle mode, boosting her strength. "I will not be embarrassed by a small creature," she shouted. Orc felt the ground shake as she rushed him. This time she was faster, much faster. Her blade cut through the air in a streak of bright blue, and Orc had to twist his entire body to avoid the strike. He landed on one knee, breath catching. She was becoming more dangerous. The next swing nearly grazed his arm. The next one missed his head by inches. Orc's mind raced. He had to stay calm. If he panicked, he would die. If he hesitated, he would lose. He needed a new approach. As Rokara raised her sword for another attack, Orc stepped forward, not backward, and caught her off guard. He slid under the swing, planted his foot on her knee joint, and jumped upward, landing on a spike of her shoulder armor. Before she could react, he placed the tip of his small blade against the side of her neck. The entire arena fell silent. Orc did not move. Rokara did not move. The only sound was the soft hum of her massive sword still vibrating in the air. He had outmaneuvered her a third time. And this time, it was clear to everyone. The human had the upper hand. Orc spoke softly, but his voice carried across the silent arena. "Your sword is bigger than mine," he said. "But that does not mean you can win." The bell rang, marking the end of part 1 of the duel. And the galaxy's opinion of humans began to change. The arena remained silent long after the bell rang. It was a strange silence, the kind that made every single person hold their breath. Thousands of Threxians stared down at the human who stood balanced on Rokara's armored shoulder, his small blade resting calmly against her neck. No one had ever seen this before. A Threxian champion cornered by a human. Rokara slowly rose to full height, careful not to throw Auric off balance. Her pride burned hotter than her armor. She could not believe this moment was real. She, a warrior who had defeated beasts, machines, and champions from 20 planets, had been outmaneuvered by someone half her size. Auric sensed her anger. He jumped down lightly, landing a short distance away, his blade still in hand but lowered. He did not smile or celebrate. Instead, he simply nodded toward her. "The bell broke the fight," he said calmly. "We continue when it rings again." Rokara stared at him with narrowed eyes. Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. "You think you have won something," she growled. "But the duel is far from over." "I know," Auric replied. The crowd finally found their voices and burst into loud conversation. Some shouted Rokara's name, demanding she crush the human. Others argued that Auric's skill deserved respect. A few Threxians remained confused, unsure how to react to someone who fought so differently from what they understood. Rokara stepped back, gripping her sword tighter. The announcer's voice echoed, "The duel will resume in 10 breaths. Prepare." Auric wiped dust from his face and steadied his breathing. He could feel his heart beating fast, but his mind remained sharp. The first part of the fight had gone well, but he knew Rokara was only warming up. Threxian warriors became more dangerous the longer they fought. Their bodies adapted quickly, and their strength increased with adrenaline. He also knew she had not used her full power yet. The bell struck again. Rokara did not hesitate. She lunged forward with incredible speed, faster than before, her plasma sword slicing through the air with deadly precision. Auric dove to the side, barely escaping the bright arc of energy. The heat from the blade brushed against his arm, reminding him how close the strike was. She swung again, this time in a horizontal slash that would have cut him in half. Auric ducked and rolled, feeling the vibration of the sword hitting the stone behind him. "She's faster," Auric muttered to himself. And she was. Much faster. The Threxian champion had increased her battle mode, letting her muscles operate at an advanced strength level. Her armor glowed brighter, and every movement seemed to leave a faint blur behind it. Auric dodged 3 more strikes before he finally managed to catch his footing. He jumped onto a pile of broken stone and leapt off to avoid a downward blow that shattered the ground where he had stood. But Rokara did not give him even one moment to rest. She was already behind him, swinging again. Auric twisted mid-air and kicked off the stone wall, flipping to the ground. He landed low, one knee touching the dirt. Rokara's roar thundered through the arena. "Stand and fight, human!" Auric stood, lifting his blade. "I am fighting." "Then strike me," she demanded. But Auric refused. He never attacked without a plan. Rokara's armor was too strong for a simple cut, and her strength was far beyond his. If he tried to trade blows directly, he would lose. He had to use her strength against her. That was the key. Rokara vaulted forward again, raising her sword for a heavy overhead strike. Auric sprinted backward as fast as he could. Her sword smashed into the ground, cracking it open. Shockwaves rippled outward, and Auric stumbled for a moment. Rokara saw the opportunity. She leapt toward him with a roar. Auric rolled aside, but she reached out with her free hand and grabbed the back of his armor. Her grip was like iron. Auric felt his feet lift off the ground as she swung him through the air like a rag doll. The world spun. Auric crashed into the dirt, rolled, and finally stopped near the edge of the arena. Pain shot through his body. He coughed as dust filled his lungs. His vision blurred for a moment, and the crowd roared with excitement at the sudden shift in momentum. Rokara pointed her sword at him. "This is true strength," she said. "Not tricks, not dodging. Strength." Auric rose slowly. His side ached, and his arm trembled slightly from the impact. But he did not fall. He tightened his grip on his blade. "You are strong," Auric admitted. But strength alone cannot win every battle. Rokara stomped forward. Then show me something else. Auric exhaled, calming his breathing. He watched the way she moved. He noticed the slight delay when she shifted her weight. He saw how her armor plates were opening wider with each rage-fueled step. She was getting stronger, but also less controlled. That was what he needed. As Rokara reached him, she swung her blade with enough force to cut through a tank. Auric dodged, but this time he did not run far. Instead, he stayed close, almost too close, moving around her body like a shadow. Her sword, large and heavy, could not turn fast enough to track him. Rokara grew frustrated. Stand still. She slammed her fist into the ground, creating a small crater. Auric jumped backward just in time. But he saw something important. Her stamina was dropping. Her power mode was strong, but consuming energy quickly. Auric shifted tactics. He didn't run far now. He stayed just out of reach, forcing her to swing her sword again and again. Each time she missed, her armor glowed brighter from heat and strain. Her breathing became louder and heavier. The crowd realized what he was doing. He is tiring her out, someone shouted. Rokara heard it too, and rage flared in her eyes. She activated another surge mode, her sword brightening with intense blue energy. The heat from it made the air shimmer. She attacked again faster than before. Auric barely kept up. He felt the heat singe the fabric of his armor. Twice, the blade almost touched him. He stumbled once, rolled, then jumped over a broken pillar. Rokara followed without stopping. She shattered the pillar in one strike and continued chasing him. Auric felt sweat drip down his forehead. His lungs burned. His legs ached. Dodging her new speed was almost impossible. But he kept going. He needed one moment. Just one mistake from her. And then it happened. Rokara swung horizontally. But the swing was too wide and too powerful. When Auric ducked under it, her momentum carried her forward a step too far. She was open only for an instant. But enough. Auric leapt upward, using the broken ground as a springboard. He landed on her forearm armor, grabbed a spike on her shoulder, and climbed quickly. Rokara tried to shake him off, but her arm was still extended from her oversized swing. She could not pull back fast enough. Auric reached her upper arm, raised his blade, and drove it into the small joint gap between her shoulder plates. The blade did not pierce her skin, it was not meant to, but it hit the energy cable beneath, disabling her entire left arm. Rokara gasped as the limb went numb and her sword hand trembled. The crowd roared in shock. Auric jumped down and landed safely behind her. "Your armor is strong," he said quietly, "but not perfect." Rokara staggered back, clutching her disabled arm. She looked at Auric not with anger this time, but with disbelief. She had expected brute strength from him. She had expected fear, but she had not expected strategy this advanced. "You studied me," she said. Auric nodded. "Before I came here, I learned everything I could about Threxian armor, battle modes, and movement patterns." Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" "Because I knew I could never beat you with strength," Auric said. "So I used what humans do best." "And what is that?" she demanded. Auric raised his blade in a ready stance. "Adapt." The bell rang again, ending the second round of the duel. The crowd erupted into chaos. Shouting, cheering, arguing, roaring. And in the center of the arena, Auric and Rokara stared at each other, knowing the real fight was only beginning. The arena shook with noise after the second bell. Threxians shouted from every direction, some cheering for Rokara's power, others amazed by Auric's skill. The battle had become something far greater than a duel. It was now a test of pride, of tradition, and of what humans could truly do in front of the galaxy's strongest warriors. Rokara stood in the center, her chest rising and falling heavily. Her left arm hung useless by her side, its armor disabled where Auric had struck the energy cable. The numbness crawled through that limb like ice, and she knew she could not use her great sword with it anymore. Still, her eyes were filled with a fire that refused to die. Auric stood across from her, breathing hard as well, but standing straight. His small blade was still in his hand. Dust covered his armor, and sweat dripped down his neck. Yet his expression remained calm. He had taken hits, rolled across stone, and dodged blades that could cut through metal. But he was still ready. The announcer spoke again. Both fighters will receive 10 breaths to regain balance. The duel continues when the next bell rings. Auric lowered his blade slightly, but his eyes never left Rokara. She noticed this and gave a small grin. "You watch me like I am going to run," she said. "I watch you because you are dangerous," Auric replied. Rokara let out a short laugh. "At least you understand that." She tilted her head, studying him. "You could have ended the fight when you disabled my arm. Why didn't you? A true warrior would take the advantage." Auric shook his head. "This duel is not about killing or humiliating. It is about proving something." "And what is that?" she asked. "That humans deserve to stand beside the other races," he said. "Not below them. Not behind them." Rokara's grin faded. She understood his goal now, and it carried weight. This was not about pride for him, this was about his whole species. The bell rang. Rokara reached down with her working hand and lifted her massive plasma sword. She let it rest against her shoulder, gripping it tightly in one hand. The blade hummed loudly, brighter than ever. Auric tightened his stance. Rokara charged. Even with one arm disabled, she moved like a living hurricane. She swung her sword downward in a heavy arc. Auric dodged, but she was faster than before. Rage fueled her, pushing her beyond her normal limits. The sword slammed into the stone again, sending pieces of broken ground flying in every direction. Auric shielded his face and rolled aside as dust filled the air. Rokara spun and used her working arm to swing the sword sideways. Auric leapt backwards, feeling the heat rush across his chest. The crowd cheered loudly. Even with one arm, Rokara was terrifying. She chased Auric across the arena, each step shaking the ground. Auric had to move quickly, jumping over cracked stones, dodging falling debris, and blocking smaller hits with his blade. Rokara swung again. Auric ducked. She swung again. Auric rolled. She thrust forward, and Auric barely twisted away. But Auric saw something important. Her sword was powerful, but slow. And with only one arm, her control was weaker. She put all her weight into each movement, making it harder for her to stop once she committed. Auric adjusted his strategy. He stepped closer. Rokara's eyes widened. She expected him to run, but instead, he moved toward her. She swung her sword with everything she had, rage burning through her veins. Auric ducked under the strike and ran along the length of the blade, using the flat of it as a momentary ramp. He jumped from it and landed behind her once more. He tapped her back armor with his blade, not a cut, just enough to show he had reached her again. The crowd gasped. Rokara roared and spun, swinging wildly. Auric jumped back, letting the sword cut empty air. "You enjoy teasing me," she growled. "No," Auric said quietly. "I am showing you the truth. And what truth is that? That strength alone cannot defeat a human." Rokara's eyes narrowed. "Then show me what humans can do." Auric nodded. The arena grew quiet as Auric moved into a low stance he had not used before. His grip on his blade changed. His breathing slowed. His eyes centered on Rokara's chest, waiting for the exact moment to strike. Rokara could feel the change. Auric was no longer just dodging, he was preparing. She charged with a final burst of energy, lifting her sword high. It glowed so bright that the air shimmered around it. She swung it downward, with all the power her massive body could generate. Auric sprinted forward. Just before the sword reached him, Orcs slid on the dusty ground, dropping to one knee and letting the blade pass an inch above his head. As he slid under the sword, he reached up and struck the inner plate of Rokara's wrist armor with the butt of his blade. It was a small strike but perfectly placed. The impact hit the control node for her grip. Rokara's fingers went numb, and the great sword slipped from her hand. It crashed into the ground with a heavy metallic boom. The crowd gasped again. Auric leapt up, using the momentum of his slide, and pressed his blade lightly against Rokara's throat for the second time. Silence fell like a blanket across the arena. Rokara froze, chest heaving, eyes burning with fury and disbelief. Sweat dripped down her face. Her armor was dented, cracked in several places, and glowing with leftover heat. Auric stood before her, his small blade steady. He was breathing hard, sweating, and clearly exhausted, but he didn't tremble. He had won the advantage again. Rokara glared at him. How? How do you move like that? Your size, your strength, everything is less than mine. Auric lowered his blade, stepping back. Humans were not made to be the strongest, he said. We were made to survive. Rokara did not understand. Survive? That is not glory. It is everything. Auric said firmly. Humans learned to survive storms, beasts, hunger, cold, heat, and fear. We learned to adapt, to change, to grow. It is our greatest gift. He pointed to her discarded sword. Your power is great, but it is the same power every time. Strong, predictable. Rokara frowned. Predictable? Auric nodded. Yes. You swing hard. You charge forward. You rely on strength. You fight the same way every time. Anyone who studies you can see the pattern. Rokara clenched her teeth. She hated being analyzed like this. Auric continued. Humans change their style mid-fight. We switch tactics. We learn during the battle. That is why you cannot read my movements. Rokara lowered her head, thinking deeply. Adaptability, she murmured. Auric nodded. That is the human advantage. The crowd murmured in shock. Many Threxians had never heard the word. To them, battle was about force, power, and endurance. But Auric spoke of something different, something their warrior culture rarely valued. The effects were visible. Some Threxians watched Auric with new respect. Others looked confused. And a few looked angry that a human could outsmart their champion. Rokara raised her head again. Her eyes no longer held only fury. There was something else, a question, a challenge, a curiosity she had not felt in many years. You disabled my left arm, she said. Then my grip. You forced me to waste my energy. You studied me, moved around me, and struck only where it mattered. Auric nodded. Rokara's voice dropped. Is this the human way? It is one of them, Auric said. Humans survive by using their minds as much as their muscles. Rokara took a slow breath. Her pride struggled to accept the truth she had just seen. But she could not deny what happened. You fought with intelligence, she said softly. No one warned me that humans could fight like this. Most don't, Auric admitted. But the best do. Rokara stared at him for a long moment. Then she said, This fight is no longer simple. Auric nodded. It never was. The bell rang again. The final round was about to begin. And both fighters knew one thing. The end of the duel would change the future of human reputation forever. The arena felt strangely quiet as the final bell echoed through the air. Thousands of Threxians leaned forward in their stone seats, waiting for what would happen next. Dust floated in the hot light, shimmering above the cracked battlefield, where Auric and Rokara stood, facing each other. Both fighters were exhausted. Both were injured. Both were determined to finish the duel with everything they had left. Rokara's armor sparked slightly where Auric had struck the joint cables. Her left arm hung limp, and her massive sword lay on the ground behind her. She could still fight, but not with her usual power. Her breath came heavy and slow, yet her eyes burned with focus. Auric's legs ached, and his ribs felt bruised. His armor was scratched, torn in several places, and covered in dust. But his grip on his small blade remained steady, and his eyes stayed locked on Rokara without fear. This was it, the final round. Not just for glory, but for understanding. The announcer's voice boomed. Final phase. The duel continues until one fighter yields or cannot stand. The crowd roared. Rokara took one deep breath and stepped forward. "Human," she said. "I underestimated you. I thought your size made you weak. I thought your weapon made you foolish." Auric answered quietly. "Many think that." Rokara tightened her jaw. "I was wrong." Auric nodded once. "The duel will show the truth." Rokara's eyes narrowed, not with anger this time, but respect. She clenched her working fist, rolled her shoulders, and shifted her stance. She had no sword now. She would fight with her body alone. Auric lifted his blade. The air between them felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Then they moved. Rokara charged first, using her legs to build force. Even without her sword, she was a storm of muscle and speed. She swung her right arm in a heavy punch. Auric dodged left, but the shockwave of her movement made the dust jump off the ground. He sliced forward with a fast strike meant to distract her. Rokara twisted, avoiding the cut, and swept her leg across the arena floor. The kick sent a wave of dust toward Auric. He shielded his face, then leapt backward to gain space. But Rokara was already on him. She grabbed a broken stone shard from the ground and threw it. Auric ducked. Another stone. Auric stepped aside. She reached Auric with a strong knee strike that pushed him back several steps. Auric slid on his heels, steadied himself, and countered with a quick slash. The blade scraped across her chest armor, leaving a long scratch. The crowd gasped. Rokara's smile widened. "Good. Fight me with everything you have." Auric tightened his grip. "I already am." Rokara lunged again, swinging her huge fist. Auric dodged, rolled right, and struck the side of her armor. It made a metallic clang, but did not pierce. Rokara turned sharply and tried to grab him. Her fingers brushed his shoulder. But he slipped away. He moved like water, calm, controlled, flowing around her attacks. Rokara moved like fire, loud, powerful, burning with raw strength. The clash was beautiful to watch. The Threxian crowd stopped shouting. They simply watched, silent and amazed. This was not a fight of hatred anymore. It had become a dance of respect. Rokara attacked again. Auric dodged. She kicked. He deflected. She swept her leg. He jumped. She punched. He rolled beneath her arm, slashing her armor's side panel. It sparked as energy leaked out. Rokara grunted. "You." "That is how humans survive," Auric answered. She charged again. Faster than he expected. Auric barely moved aside. But this time she anticipated his escape. She twisted her body mid-charge and wrapped her arm around his waist. Auric's feet left the ground. Rokara lifted him easily and threw him across the arena. He hit the ground hard. Pain shot through his back. For a moment, his vision blurred. Rokara took slow steps toward him. Auric forced himself to stand. His legs shook, but he kept going. "You still get up?" she said softly. "Yes," he replied. "Humans always get up." Rokara nodded. "Then get ready." She charged again. Auric steadied his breathing. He waited for the right moment. One chance. One mistake from her. That was all he needed. As Rokara swung her fist toward him, Auric stepped inward close to her chest where her large arm had less room to move. Rokara's eyes widened. She tried to adjust, But Auric was already climbing. He stepped onto her knee, pushed off her thigh armor, and leapt upward. Rokara reached up to grab him, but her delayed arm moved too slow. Auric flipped over her shoulder, landing behind her, and placed his blade gently against the back of her neck. Again, the arena fell silent. Even the wind stopped. Auric stood behind her, breathing hard but steady. Rokara remained frozen, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He had reached her blind spot. For the final time. Auric lowered his blade and stepped back. Rokara slowly turned around. Her eyes glowed, not with anger, but with something far deeper. Honor. You could have cut me, she said quietly. Auric shook his head. The duel is won. There is no need. Rokara stared at him in silence. The audience waited. The announcer held his breath. Then, slowly, Rokara knelt. A ripple of shock passed through the crowd. A Threxian champion kneeling to a human. She struck her fist against the ground, bowing her head. Auric Vance, she said, voice deep and strong. You have defeated me with mind, heart, and skill. You have shown our people what humans truly are. Auric stared, surprised. He opened his mouth to speak, but she continued. You are small in size. She lifted her head, eyes blazing with pride, but great in spirit. The crowd reacted like a storm. Some roared Auric's name, others shouted in disbelief. Many Threxians slammed their fists against their chests, a sign of respect. Auric bowed back. You fought with honor, Rokara, and with courage. Rokara stood again. She faced the crowd and raised Auric's hand into the air. Her voice boomed across the arena. This human is a true warrior. The entire arena erupted. Cheers, roars, shouts, applause that shook the stones beneath their feet. The High Council of Threxia watched from the top balcony. One elder leaned toward the others and said, The human way must be studied. Their adaptability, their unpredictability, it may change everything. Another elder nodded. Let this duel be recorded as a new lesson. And so, on that day, the Threxian Council created a new doctrine. The Vance doctrine's strength is power, but adaptability is victory. Auric and Rokara walked side by side toward the exit gate, both limping, both tired, but both smiling. Rokara glanced at him. Auric. Yes? Your sword may be small, she smirked, but your courage is enormous. Auric chuckled. And your insults are still terrible. She laughed a heavy, warm laugh that echoed across the corridor. That day, humanity earned a new place in the galaxy. Not through brute force, not through fear, but through heart, strategy, and resilience. Respect earned, not taken.